HIPPO is a foundation, a non-profit, named after the Greek Hippocrates, that laid in an original ode, a foundation for open source. It's focusing on healthcare, and we believe in open knowledge for healthcare. We believe in equality, in fundamental rights to health. And we try to build data commons and open source AI for the SMEs, for the industry, by liberating data, and we fit well into the new regulatory framework with the Digital Governance Act, where there are data trusts for data altruism, and that's where we can put us in.
Okay, move on to your thoughts on this topic.
Thank you. So the distinguished minister, distinguished guests, I'm a European citizen, and I worked for US and European big tech companies, with always a focus on healthcare for the last 2 decades. The first 10 years of my career were focused on building systems that collect data. The last 10 years were focused on creating value out of that data. And I have good reasons to believe, and it was mentioned before, that the current market deployment of AI in the area of medicine will accelerate medical innovation in unanticipated ways. Still, I have also strong reasons to believe that applying data economics principles could result in larger health inequalities. And I think everybody understands that if we fail to democratize AI, Europe's small and medium businesses will not harness its power independently of big tech, and that's a big worry. If we fail to lead and set the research agenda, we will lose our sovereignty, which was mentioned many times today. And according to a recent survey, and perhaps people are not aware, but the majority of our children has a great sense of belonging when they are online as rather than they are offline. That means that they are already the next inhabitants of the digital world that is constructed around tech feudalism rather than democracy. And if we fail to develop AI that increases our rights in these digital worlds, then these rights will be diminished, and that's my biggest worry. Up until now, AI has been used by big tech and startups to undermine our democratic institutes, and they have started to govern people under their terms of use without explicit mandate or democratic legitimacy. Simply put, this is tech feudalism. I don't want my kids to grow up in that world, so I quitted my job and I started the HIPPO Foundation, as I mentioned before. I was surprised that after we started open sourcing medical AI, that UNESCO's international research organization, rewarded us as one of the topmost 100 most sustainable AI initiatives. I was also very pleased that German Axel Springer awarded us with the German Startup Award, which was surprising because we are a non-profit. And I do have hope because the Insightful AI and Democratic Value Index that was published this year by the independent non-profit research organization, the Center of AI and Digital Policy, sheds a light on our AI laws and policies of 50 countries. And 7 out of 10 of these countries come from Europe, and we should be really proud because the US, and sorry for my US friends here, but the US takes place 27 on this index, just after Turkey and the Philippines. So the European Fundamental Rights Framework and our fundamental ideals, such as solidarity and the free flow of information, are of immense importance when we talk about AI, and it must be protected. So governance to safeguard the public interest, to protection of the individual, and as well the collective rights and the rule of law amidst technological exponential change and geographical power shift as we see them today, has been on the top of the political agenda. We have 5 new laws, the Digital Market Act, the Digital Service Act, the Data Governance Act, the Data Act, and the AI Act that are being underway. An answer is if these regulations will allow Europe's innovators to flourish and the industry to compete or even lead on a global scale, while avoiding the errors of GDPR. Yes, the errors of GDPR, because the data industry has adopted GDPR without changing its practices. This is accomplished by primarily disregarding user rights or just getting away with it. Or do you know what data is being used for our Instagram algorithms or TikTok recommendation AI models, we don't know. These are opaque AI models that are intransparent, and even an NGO, Algorithm Watch, out of Berlin, who tried to reverse engineer the Instagram algorithms, had to abandon the project because there were 20 lawyers at their door. Innovation should not be more important than the rule of law or these fundamental rights, which are the foundation of our quality of life. But AI should not strengthen top-down regulatory control either. And if we want to attract human capital, research and development collaborations should not be too limited and regulatory and put on the regulatory rules. They should be facilitated and accelerated. So I was really astounded to hear and to learn that some legislators from the European Union, from the EU Council, proposed an amendment a few weeks ago to the current AI Act that would regulate open source research collaborations, and a really unusual and potential harmful move. While these proposals intend to make these tools or AI safe or safe to use, it would impose legal liabilities for each coder who published code on the internet in open source, and it would impede the growth of collaboration. I concur this risk-based approach, but code does not equal application. This proposal would scare all talent of human capital away, as to give no trust is to get no trust. So I absolutely believe and agree that a post-deployment AI should be subject to regulation and the rule of law, but to regulate AI source code itself is, for me, pretty nonsense. So, however, there is a more significant problem with fair competition, and it's something we need to talk about. So, how can systems be equitable if data accumulations are following capital concentrations? So, given the current market capitalization of big tech companies, it is clear that the data economical model of data equaling capital would worsen the information and the power asymmetries. What is fair competition when the biggest denominator for innovation is having access to capital that allows you to appropriate exclusive digital data territory? The market capitalization of Microsoft is tenfold the times of the GDP of Greece. So it's easy to guess where that data will flow if we equal it to capital. So, and I wonder why we didn't learn from the historical and unprecedented plea of Tony Blair and Bill Clinton back in 2000, where they declared the human genetic code, which is data, as something that is a common good. It was open sourced, and it created an output of $1 trillion. It also created an environment that everybody could develop technology and led to the decrease of cost from $1 billion for sequencing the human genome to just $100 today. So if we compare this current trend of data capitalism with Gutenberg's printing machine, his investor, which was called Fust, also Goldsmith, probably would have advised him to patent the printed alphabet. This idea that a patent owner could profit every time somebody uses the letter A, for example, is ridiculous. We probably would have still be buying letters of indulgences and believed that when we were sick, we had sinned, and the enlightenment would probably never happen. So the dark ages were called dark because knowledge was not accessible. And I dare to say that data and AI are much more powerful than the printing machine, and its impact will probably be more profound than anything we have seen before. History teaches us that facilitating access to common goods, like the human genome, is considerably more beneficial than putting paywalls in front of it. Our first regulatory rule to protect European citizens' data, GDPR, neither broke up the monopolies nor established European counterweights. However, I reside in Berlin, and we benefited from an influx of 10 billion venture capital last year. This success is partly dependent of the access of code that is required by the digital health start or digital startups. And the majority of the people do not realize that the substantial amount of code originates from public, open, and free libraries. As they did in the analog era, these libraries serve as a source of information for the communities as populate, update them, and serve them for free.
But if you can, I'm going to have to ask you to summarize.
I know I had 10 minutes, but I saw that it's shorter, but I will try to, yeah. to shorten and brief up.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I disagree with Guy Verhofstadt this morning, who said that we have to copy the US and China. I believe that we need to collaborate, and we need to collaborate this based on open source, data solidarity, and data altruism. There are regulations on the way that allow us to do this. If we are smart in Europe and we want to unify, we have to do this in a collaborative approach instead of just copying the data economy out of the US. And last but not least, this conference was about putting solidarity to the next level. And as Alasdair Ross said yesterday evening, I asked if capitalism is to blame to the recent energy crisis, I cannot answer that question. But I do know if you want to avoid strong unilateral dependencies and strengthen European unity, data altruism, data solidarity, and open source collaborations will be part of the ingredients that will make Europe's innovation power blossom. Thank you for your attention.